When you tell someone that your brother is a gecko breeder, they look at you like you're insane.
I thought I was marrying a doctor, and now I'm married to somebody that is breeding geckos for a living.
He said, really what I want to do is raise geckos. And I said, raise geckos?
Do people want geckos? And can't you just get it for 20 bucks in PetSmart?
So I'm Zach, and this is my business, Gecko Dad Reptile.
When he was younger, he was very interested in many things. We called him Smorgasbord Zach.
Zach has a ton of hobbies. He kind of goes to a new thing every other week, and it's insane, but he has a ton of things. He did space paintings for a little while, where like you spray paint stuff and it looks like a space scene.
Sports, many sports.
He's done model rockets.
Doing woodworking, playing violin.
I think what inspired Zach to become a doctor was the loss of our neighbor's grandfather. He was pretty close to Zach, and they always did stuff together. He didn't have a grandson, so he kind of looked to Zach, and Zach was always hanging out with the neighbors, which was really awesome. They were exactly the same age. They were born, I think, 2 weeks apart, and they grew up together, and it was always Zach and Lauren, and they always did stuff. And when her grandpa would come up, they would always go golfing together. They would go to a bunch of different places.
So Zachary told us that he wanted to go into med school when he was in 6th grade. He had to write this little poem as part of his school assignment at that time. What do I want to be when I grow up? And he said, I want to be a doctor. And we thought, wow, that's really cool. That's pretty hard, but you're only in 6th grade, so go have fun and enjoy.
I didn't know much about it at the time. All I knew was that it was, it was a hard time for them. And I finally said, like, oh, I want to be like an oncologist. I want to cure that. Like, I want to help people with cancer. And from then on, all through high school, all through college, even that's what I had my mind on. So up through junior year, I was still good to go for med school. I took the MCATs and I got the scores and I saw they were good, but for some reason after that I felt just, even though they were good and I could probably get in, I just, something changed in me. And senior year came up and everyone was applying to schools and I started to, and I just felt stressed, and I was really just thinking it over so much that I think that I just finally found out that's not where I wanted to go. That's the main reason I wanted to stop. It was just too much for me. I know some people are, they're great at that and they're good at pushing those emotions to the side, but I'm definitely not, and I learned that through college. That's just not me.
When Zach and I got married, we moved into my Aunt Mel and my cousin Tegan's old house, and Tegan had a leopard gecko that she bought at like a pet store. And when we got back from our honeymoon, there was Yoda, this leopard gecko, and I was like, what is it doing here? And my aunt was like, well, you guys like animals, and Tegan doesn't really want it anymore, and so we thought maybe you guys would take it. And we were like, I mean, I guess. When we got this leopard gecko, he had to research it to death. He had to know what it ate, where it came from, the best thing to have in its cage, what to help it shed, what's bad for it, what's good for it, what else could it eat besides the normal stuff. And so he really wanted to research it. And as he got researching it, he's like, these are really cool animals.
I researched him because that's what I do when I have a hobby. I just sit there on the computer and look up things about things. So I was looking up about geckos, and then I'm like, oh, I can get a couple more because why not?
He ordered 2 online, and we ended up naming them Betsy and Stitch. He started researching more and more about the science-y side of the leopard geckos, not just the maintenance of them. And he found out that the genetics are actually really cool, and there's all these different kinds. They're not just the ones that you normally see in a pet store. So he was like, I think I want to try breeding Betsy and Stitch. It could be cool. And I was like, yeah, I would love to see what their offspring would be, and let's make a Punnett square to figure out what their babies could look like. And kind of got into the genetics of it. And then from Betsy and Stitch, we got 6 babies that lived. And I think that's really what sparked Zach's interest into the gecko breeding.
And I'm like, oh man, this is so cool. I have babies now. I could sell these if I wanted to. And then the following year, I'm like, you know what? I can get a lot more and make a lot more money from it and actually start a business with this. And I saw it was actually a viable option. The first thing I usually always do when I have a stupid idea is talk to Tom, my brother. I just texted him one day. I'm like, dude, I think I'm just gonna stop this whole med school thing and open up a reptile business. He's like,
Oh, yeah, great.
so then after that, I brought it up to Jess, my wife, and I said, you know, I think I'm gonna be happier doing this. I'm definitely not gonna be happy going through med school. I want to spend time with you, and she said,
You want to do what?
so, and then I brought it up to my parents finally.
And I said, oh no.
How do you get from applying to med school to selling geckos online?
We were sitting and trying to come up with a name for ours. Zach and I had spent a ton of time, a ton of names. We were looking online to see if the names that we came up with are already taken, and most of them were, which was actually very surprising because you don't realize how many people sell reptiles until you look for somebody who sells reptiles because it's just not something you think about. So after a long time trying to come up with a name, Zach and I were stumped, and Jess looks at us and was like,
What about Gecko Dex?
we're like, Gecko Dad?
Gecko Dex, that's really cool.
And I was thinking like a Pokédex.
Zach and I were like, whoa, that's crazy. So we took that and ran with it.
He came up with some mocks of logos and stuff, and we loved it. So he came up with a logo for me. He helped me set up the whole website on Squarespace, and that's all set up now.
Zachary was an entrepreneur kind of at heart. So we sort of put it right back to him, as you would expect. So you want to start a business. What do you need? Where are you going to get the geckos? Where are you going to keep the geckos? How are you going to feed them? You know, a whole bunch of questions, but he had it all, you know, worked out. And he did. He kind of presented a business model, almost. First I need this, first I need this. I can build these, we can make these cheaper. And then he lays on my wife, Lisa, so I want to raise them in my old bedroom. What do you think about that? And I remember looking at Lisa and wondering what her answer was going to be. She's like, yeah, as long as it doesn't smell up the whole house.
I would come home from work and it smelled. I opened the front door and it smelled like a pet shop. So I said, okay, something's got to change. You need to put some kind of fan or something.
So we bought a really big fan and put it in the room.
Just like that. Same what I do. So we actually, my dad and I built these together, saved so much money because you can go online and buy one of these for probably $700, $800. We built all of these for $300 total. So, yep. After my dad and I built all these racks, and as soon as they were ready, and I knew, you know, I had the heat tape in there, they're all good to go. I went online and bought 50 geckos. That was an expensive process, but I had saved up for that, and I knew that's what I was getting myself into.
And they all showed up here. They were all in these styrofoam bins, and he opened them all up, and they all had their genetic code written on the bottle, so he transferred them from this to the racks that he has now. After about 4 or 5 months, he started to breed them, and now we have somewhere of 150 geckos in that room.
I talked to an accountant, and he gave me the contact of someone who could incorporate me, so I'm now Gecko Dad Reptiles, LLC. Yep, so it's official. It's not just like a hobby anymore. It's a business now. I do a little bit of work every day. I'd say I probably do about an hour to an hour and a half of cleaning. That'll probably be two of these racks here. So like this and this, one day I'll clean those two. And when I say clean, I just mean take out the paper towel that's in there, wipe it all down, give them new vitamins, new food, new water. And then each gecko would get that probably twice a week. So that takes up most of the time of the gecko business.
We can kind of all take care of them as a family. You know, I don't do too much in the business aspect, but I can come with him if he needs to come clean geckos on the weekend. And if I don't feel like sitting there dealing with the geckos, I can come up and talk to his mom or, you know, hang out with his parents.
Zachary is pretty much on his own with it. We do worry when power goes out in the house because then the geckos get really cold, and apparently they can't get cold for too long. So we have a generator ready to roll. So I guess that's our role, is to step in an emergency and feed them, take care of them, and keep the heat on when we need it. Mostly to continue to encourage, right? And to tell other people, hey, he sells geckos. He what? Yeah, he sells geckos. Do you want one?
This guy was one of my first breeders I ever had. He's one of my biggest, so he's special to me. So starting now, it's February now, so they're all starting to get ready to breed here. Spring is coming up. I can tell which ones are ovulating, which are the females, and all I have to do really is just put a male into the cage with her, wait about a day or two. That's even long, and then she'll be laying eggs in the next 2 weeks after that. And then she lays those eggs throughout the whole summer, pretty much until August. 2 eggs every 2 weeks, pretty much, is how they lay. So if you think I have about 25 females laying 2 eggs every 2 weeks for 5 months. It's a lot of eggs. So if you look, and it's gonna be hard to see on her. She has a little pink spot right here, a little circle. It's kind of hard to see because she's shedding. There you go. This doesn't hurt him at all. That basically is an egg before it's formed that is ready to be fertilized pretty much.
I loved the babies hatching, so we would get ready to go to bed. My husband would go to bed. He's like, "Lisa, where are you?" And I'm downstairs. I'm checking the babies. So I would just be hanging out down there, watching the incubator and watching the babies hatching. And it was like Easter. Every day I would run downstairs in the morning like a little kid on Easter, wanting to see, did they leave the Easter eggs? Where are they? I would go down and look at the eggs in the incubator and see, if anybody was hatching out, because it's just so amazing to watch that.
It's coming out. It's coming out right now as we speak.
We've had a few escapees. I'd say that probably the funniest is my mom was down here cleaning the litter box. There's a couple cats in this house. And she lifted up the scooper for the litter box, and sitting under it is a gecko. And the thing had no tail. They drop their tails when they get scared or if something's holding onto it. They'll drop their tail. It doesn't hurt them too bad. It grows back, so it doesn't really affect them much. But it had no tail. My mom freaked out. She called me up. She's like, "Zach, there's geckos all over the place." Like, they're not all over the place. It's one gecko. Just put it back in the tub. It'll be fine. So we did that. A couple of days later, I came back to check on it and see how it was doing. It was gone again. Yeah. But we found it again. It was under here. Actually, my dog here, he can sniff them out pretty good.
I would love to see it grow to the point where everybody that wants a gecko comes to him. If not first, he's one of the big contenders of gecko sales.
He really would like to sell all kinds of animals and breed special ones and have high quality, maybe even for the science world. He could breed things that could be used in testing in labs.
I would say probably in the next couple of years, we're going to end up having to move in. I don't know if that means renting out his own space or just finding a bigger room in the house, maybe, or something like that.
I told him that he should come into schools and go into local places and do a show. I said, get into that. You've got to get past the part of, I don't want to talk to people. And that's another avenue to go with the geckos, because that is giving him more exposure. I've got 3 of his geckos in my class, and the kids love them. And Zach came in, he did that. He did a whole demonstration with them, taught them how to take care of the geckos, what they eat. He showed them how to handle them, and the kids, now they idolize Zach. He comes in, they're like, "Zachary, and we went on your website and we saw your geckos." They feel like they know him because he's come in and given them the time.
I've been to my wife's school with the geckos so far. The kids loved it. I go to my mom's school, and I always bring them in the first of the year and show the kids, let them play with them and stuff. And I've actually had a few other teachers ask me to come in with them and show them around, because there's some kids here that probably would never see something like that. So I think that'd be cool, and I would definitely consider doing that. As long as I can support it and support the amount of time that I'm putting into it, I will be more than happy with that. I definitely see Gecko Dad as being a long-term commitment for me. I don't see it closing down anytime soon or in the future at all. I always want to be either keeping them or making more of them, or branching out to other kind of reptiles for sure.